Hi, this is Ms. Piercy with a quick lesson on memo format and document design for Module 3. Memo can be thought of as sort of very equivalent to an email. In fact, an email is actually an electronic version of a memo rather than the electronic version of a letter, for example. And memos, like emails, are often used because they have a wider distribution range and they're a little bit less a little bit less formal rather than a letter. One thing about memos that maybe is a little bit different from emails and is definitely different from letters is that memos are often used within organizations rather than from one organization or individual to another organization or individual. So they're usually an internal form of communication more than anything else. But everything that we learn about memos really applies equally to anything you'll do with emails in the future. The parts of a usable memo are very similar to the parts of an email in many respects. One thing that's a distinctive feature is the word memorandum or memo that goes at the top of the page. Then there's a heading section that has 4 parts: to, from, date, and subject. On a memo that you're printing out, you would also initial as the sender to the right of your name in the from line. And then there's going to be sort of whatever the body text of the document is, whether it's short or long, but memos are usually on the short side, to be honest. So this is what the heading section and the top of a memo is going to look like. There's that word memorandum, there's the 4 lines, and you can see how the justification is set up here, where it almost looks like 2 columns, but you don't do it by setting up columns. You just do it by using your tab key. So you want everything to be lined up really nicely and neatly, not kind of raggedy. It makes it much more readable, and that's usually single spaced. And also you want a subject line that's pretty specific and as concrete as possible. That's also true for emails. There are some optional memo elements, some of which wouldn't apply at all for this class, but section headings and other graphical highlights like bullet point lists or number lists are often commonly used and should be used in memos you create for this class. Note, however, that a memo does not include a salutation, a dear so-and-so or hello so-and-so, even though emails often have those things. Also, a memo does not have any kind of sign-off at the end or a signature or signature block, whereas an email very much often does. In most other respects, though, memos and emails really kind of operate under the same principles. Remember, when you're writing a memo and when you're sending emails, your tone, even though it can be a little more casual than a letter, still needs to be professional. You need to be writing clearly and concisely, trying to organize and present your information so that the reader can understand it quickly and can respond to it readily. You also want to make sure you don't spam people with memos or emails. Don't do a reply all, just reply to the people you need to reply to. Now, document design essentially is regarding how information and images and ideas are organized on the page, and that applies to printed material as well as electronic or digital material. And when a document is well designed, it's something that is easier for the reader to understand. It's easier for the reader to get in and out and do whatever they need to do with that information. Also has greater visual appeal, so it just looks nicer. Many types of documents have a specific design feature that is sort of baked into the expectations for that document, like instructions, for example, or a resume. There are certain formats and document design principles that we always want to see, but there's also a lot of room for personal taste and expression. As a general rule, your first goal is to choose a layout that's going to fit what you need to do, whether that is sort of a standard horizontal grid like most written pages, or whether it's a vertical grid that uses columns, or maybe a mix of both. You want to choose design features that give your document a sort of consistent look, that makes it look, so to speak, legit. So sometimes that's a choice of a color scheme, a typeface scheme, or other visual elements, branding elements, for example. And you definitely want to use headings in your document to help organize the information for your reader. There's a great example that I've posted in the module of taking information from a source. It's from a CDC webpage or CDC source about COPD, and organizing it using document design features so that it's a lot more visually appealing and a lot more usable. So you might take a look at that posted in D2L. Now in assignment 3, I'm asking you to do a little bit of something similar. You'll want to make sure you read the assigned materials. There's 2 required reading assignments for this unit of the course. There's some other optional things you can take a look at if you want to, and you'll obviously want to read the full assignment instructions. But what you're going to be doing is creating a memo as the instructions explain to this guy named Simon Jones, who's supposed to be your supervisor, and you're going to be discussing this flyer about testing for international students. And the flyer you've been given is not very effectively designed or organized. So you're going to discuss in the memo the problems with the original flyer and how you can improve on them. And then you're going to create a revised flyer that implements the strategies that you've discussed in your memo and some of the things you've learned about document design. Make sure that both of these elements are in a single word processing document. So have your memo on one page and have your flyer on the next page. As a rule, your memo will need to use standard memo format, as I talked about in this video and as is described in chapter 1.4. Your memo is also going to talk about the problems of the original flyer, proposed changes that are in line with document design principles. You're going to want to organize your own memo effectively, so use document design strategies in your memo, such as section headings and lists, and make sure your writing is clear, concise, fluent, and well edited. The memo should implement the changes that the flyer should implement the changes that you discussed in your memo. You're going to need to edit the material from the original source, just keeping the things that are really needed for the audience and getting rid of all the excess. Your document is going to need to have clear visual appeal, just what we would expect for a flyer. It's going to have an added URL as discussed in the assignment instructions. You make that up. And your flyer is also going to need to demonstrate good writing and effective editing. So that is it. If you've got any questions about anything related to Module 3, be sure to post to the questions discussion forum. Don't forget that this week there is a quiz as well, and if you've got any questions about that, you can always post to the questions discussion forum. I will catch you next time. Bye-bye.